In 1991, Zokhar Dudayev, who was a Chechen general in the Soviet army, revolted against the Russian government and declared Chechnya independent from Russia. Zokhar Dudayev was the first Chechen general in the history of the Soviet Union, and he had a deep desire to gain independence for his people, who had been oppressed by Russian rulers for centuries. In 1987, Zokhar Dudayev stood with the Estonian and Lithuanian people and disobeyed Soviet government orders to bomb peaceful protesters. Dudayev wanted independence and freedom for all people around the world, and he deeply desired independence for his own Chechen people. In the early 1980s, Chechnya became one of the poorest regions in the Soviet Union due to years of communist neglect and mismanagement. The unemployment rate was extremely high, and native Chechens were underrepresented in higher paying jobs such as oil production, refining, engineering, and transportation. Therefore, there was a high level of inequality between Chechens and Russians. In 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Zokhar Dudayev declared Chechnya as an independent state. He stated, "A slave who does not seek to get out of slavery deserves double slavery." The Russians could not afford to lose the oil-rich province of Chechnya. Therefore, Russian President Boris Yeltsin sent 1,000 Russian troops to Chechnya to try and re-establish Russian control over the region. However, after Russian troops arrived at Grozny airport, they were forced to quickly withdraw as they were surrounded by heavily armed Chechen fighters. Many Chechen army officers in the Soviet army, such as Ibrahim Abdurrahmanovich Suleimanov, defected from the army and joined the independent Chechen state. Soon after, Zokhar Dudayev began the creation of a Chechen army, announcing a nationwide conscription for military service, which began in late November 1991. Dudayev ordered Chechen fighters to attack Russian troops who were still stationed in Chechnya, and Russian troops were forced to leave Chechnya in June 1992. The statue of Lenin in Grozny was torn down, and all Soviet flags were replaced with the flag of the newly independent Chechen Republic. Clocks were given a twist 1 hour behind Moscow, breaking the tyranny of the Russian capital's standard time. Throughout the streets of Grozny, Chechens chanted the slogan, "Chechnya is not a subject of Russia. Chechnya is the subject of Allah." After Chechnya became independent, Zokhar Dudayev announced an ambitious strategy to reboot Chechnya's economy. His plan included the nationalization of all Soviet industrial enterprises in Chechnya, the creation of gold and foreign exchange reserves, and the construction of a water pipeline from Chechnya to the Middle East. All religions were given equal freedom, and anyone arrested for political reasons under the old regime was released from prison. Chechen intellectuals such as Sayyid Hassan Abu Muslimov, Ilman Mavsurovich Yusupov, and Zambulat Sharpudonovich Suleymanov joined the new government and participated in drafting the Chechen constitution. The new independent nation of Chechnya formed strong relations with countries such as Ukraine, Georgia, Afghanistan, Turkey, Malaysia, and Qatar. President Zokhar Dudayev also tried to revive Chechen culture, which had been suppressed during Russian rule. He promoted Chechen writers, intellectuals, and musicians such as Ahmed Suleymanovich Suleymanov, who was awarded a state prize for his book on the history of Chechnya and Ingushetia. Zokhar Dudayev once stated, "Russian fascism is an ideology that exploits false history, oppressed people, and occupied territories, and it is characterized by constant political and ideological terrorism." The independent Republic of Chechnya flourished for 3 years. However, in 1994, the Russian President Boris Yeltsin tried to recapture Chechnya and launched an invasion into Chechnya to try and retake the oil-rich region. After Russian troops crossed the border into Chechnya, Chechens resisted the invasion. They blocked the passage of Russian troops and fought fiercely against the invaders. Russian troops began killing civilians and shelling residential buildings. President Zokhar Dudayev called on Chechens to resist the invasion. The Chechen army resisted the Russian invasion, and many Chechen Islamic preachers such as Sheikh Ali Fathi al-Shishani formed their own volunteer resistance groups and called on Chechens to wage a jihad against the invading Russian army. Chechen newspapers such as Literary Chechnya Ingushetia began reporting the crimes of the Russian army and calling on Chechens to rise up and resist the invaders. Chechen fighters attacked Russian troops by throwing grenades and Molotov cocktails from the roofs of buildings, allowing them to slow down Russian columns through the streets. The Chechen army used hit-and-run tactics and moved from vehicle to vehicle, firing rocket-propelled grenades at Russian tanks and armored vehicles. Hundreds of Russian soldiers were killed in the streets of Grozny due to Russia's failure to prepare for urban warfare. Once the Russian military leadership realized that troops could not gain control of the Chechen capital, they resorted to shelling and bombing the city. Intense aerial bombing resulted in tens of thousands of civilian casualties and hundreds of thousands of refugees. Russia's use of overwhelming force and indiscriminate violence only further angered the local population, and Chechens continued to resist. 5,000 Russian soldiers were killed in the battle for Grozny. However, Russian forces eventually took control of Grozny and killed Chechen President Zokhar Dudayev. Despite this, Russian forces were unable to establish effective control over the mountainous Chechen countryside, and Chechen raids and guerrilla warfare continued.